Hello and welcome to a new episode of Pat's Chat. Today with me, Marc Chua, the founder of Ultron Malaysia sports apparel brand. Very interesting person I recently had the honor to meet with. Thank you very much, Marc, for making the time and chatting with me today.
Good morning, Patrick. The pleasure is mine.
Okay, awesome. Marc, first of all, let me know who are you? You're a proud Malaysian. This I know. Where did you grow up?
Well, very much so. Proud Malaysian is something that I have been speaking and sharing with people a lot, especially when I was back in the Ultron business for the past 6, 7 years. But okay, I was basically born in Johor, a small town in Johor named Batu Pahat, and I was raised there up to when I turned 18 years old. Then I moved out to KL and pursue my tertiary studies. So and I have lived here for almost for the next 20 years since.
20 years, yeah. Your
Yeah,
background, what
yeah.
is your parents were doing in Johor nearby Singapore? What was the business of your parents?
They were also in the apparel trading business, in fact. So that sort of but so their background and experience in the business has sort of set a benchmark for me to follow suit to pursue back in the same industry
Understand that
later on in my career.
that answers a bit the question, like where is the apparel's interest coming from? But first, before you moved into business, you were studying in UK, if that's correct.
No, in fact, I would say back then, because of the financial constraint of my family, so I didn't get a chance to actually go to UK and to do my tertiary studies. So and at that point of time in Malaysia, it was very popular for a lot of local colleges to offer a twinning program with universities in UK, Australia, but then you were able to complete your degree or even up to your master's program completely right here in Malaysia, and which was what I did.
I see. I understand. Okay,
Yeah,
studied. You did a bachelor in until 2005, and then soon after that,
computer
founded
science. That's right.
or yeah, correct. Yeah, and moved into your first company, Max Textile Corporation,
That's right.
where you were 6 years. And again, compared to the sports apparel we coming later, this was more about fashion. Can you give us a bit more details about that company? How you founded that?
Sure. I will share a little bit about the background first of how I got into
Hmm.
the industry. The interesting thing was at that point of time when I was pursuing my degree. So that was, I would say, at a very early stage of the boom of the IT industry in Malaysia. I could still remember I did my final degree project on a mobile web-based system on WAP, if you remember what it is. So that was a long time ago. So but what happened was when I was pursuing my degree, I was also very actively involved in NGO like Lions Club, especially Lions Club, I would say. So and with my background and my parents' network in apparel trading back in Johor, so I became that key person within all my NGO connections where everyone could sort of rely on me to procure apparels and t-shirts from. So I became that person that everybody started placing the t-shirt order with, be it for the clubs or for their own companies and businesses as well. So as soon as I graduated, at that point of time, it wasn't easy as well to get a job in the IT industry. So in order to survive, I sort of had to I sort of did a lot of part-time jobs on the side. But then a close friend of mine from Lions Club just came by and asked me, "Hey, well, since you are so experienced in this apparel sourcing and trading network, and you have been supplying to so many of us within the Lions Club community, why don't you try to like start a small trading enterprise of your own and somehow turn it into a business?" And that was what I did. And so I started that as a trading, as a sole proprietor enterprise for about 2 3 years, merely acting as a trading company. It was more like a one-man show, two-man show sort of thing. So I was basically just trading and supplying apparels and t-shirts to all my contacts around me. There wasn't proper branding. Wasn't proper office even. So it was just I was just acting more like a supplier. So then
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So
so for
you
about
both the brands and the clothes basically, and you were like trading. You mean like reselling among your
yes,
network? Yeah. Hmm.
basically most of those almost all of those I would say were generic or label brands. So basically it was just custom design orders as per corporate requirement or my client's requirement. Simple as that. So basically
Hmm.
they come out with sort of the design, the quantity, what sort of specifications they were looking at. I became the supplier to provide the solution for them to help them to source. Right. So
Okay.
then,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, so I was doing that on sole proprietorship for about 3 years. Then, so that was when the business started to pick up a little bit. So in 2008, I decided to start my first company, which was Max Textile, as you mentioned earlier. So that was basically riding on a similar model, but bigger scale. I sort of had a team. I had a team of about five, six of us. Then we had our office and showroom in Puchong. So and that was a more proper business in some sense. So instead of a one man show sort of thing. So then I so but the business model was pretty much the same. The business model was pretty much I was still doing what I was doing for the past. I was still serving the same client base. I was still just providing the same apparel sourcing solutions and suppliers as such. So so in that sense, because I have been doing the same thing and it was such a crowded space, it was a very competitive industry per se, where the only way every company could compete among each other was to go into price war. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, I was able to grow my business to some extent, but there was never any sort of exponential growth. So
Hmm.
but being in the apparel industry my whole life, so I sort of at that point of time, well, and I was young back then. I was in my mid 20s, so I had this big dream that since I have been in the apparel and textile business for so long, I had this dream of wanting to create a brand of my own.
Hmm.
So well, it could be fashion, it could be sports, it could be the lifestyle, but I just wanted to one day to ultimately have a brand, have a label of my own that I could see my client, that I could tell people and proudly tell them, this is my brand, this is my collection. So this is what I take pride of, which was something that I didn't have back then. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
see
so
that. Sorry, yeah, sorry, I
yeah,
interrupted.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was I can see already the vision that you had, the idea that you had, and I think like the years around 14, 15 became now very interesting. You completed an MBA program for this one. I know this was an online one, even though it was the University of Southern Queensland.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you completed the MBA. I know you got a larger family. You got some kids also.
Oh yeah.
But what was like the point where you put an end basically to the fashion apparel company? What was it? Was it really like they said, okay, now I want to start my own brand, going to sports, or what was the idea behind that?
In fact, it was after a couple of years when I was in the trading business with Max Textile. So as I said, the business was growing slowly. I was doing okay, but I was stuck in a circle. I was stuck in a cycle where I wasn't very pleased with where the business was growing and where I was growing as a person. So then by chance I happened to and at that point of time because the business was self-sustaining on its own, so I didn't have any sort of bank loans or anything.
Hmm.
So, but by chance, I happened to get to know a couple of friends who are in the banking industry who sort of gave me some consultancy. So by looking at the performance of my company back then, they say although it wasn't big, but it has been healthy to some extent. So they suggested to me if I was interested, they could have worked with me to help me to get some bank financing support from the bank, which I could use the money to venture or invest into a new project or a new business if I want to, or to somehow grow the business from what it was. So so yeah, and I did. So that sort of gave me the spark and the fire in me at that point of time. So and I did went ahead with the application, and I received the loan. I received a big chunk of cash at that point of time. So I was having so much hope and ambitions that I just wanted to jump into retail fashion at that point of time. And I did. I created my first brand that's called the name of the brand was called Freestyle. I even went on to BFM
Okay. Yeah.
promoting about it. So I joined trade fair. So and then we managed to open two boutiques of our own in Aeons, and we also had a few retail pop-up store in the departmental store, particularly with Tanks, Voy Fashion. But the reality is I knew nothing about the retail fashion industry. I took whatever cash that I had from loan and I jumped into it. I took the leap of faith, what they call, and I
Yeah.
just jumped into it. And within 6 months, I was
You burned
I
all
was
the
done.
money.
I burned almost 60% of it.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Within 6 months or less.
Hmm.
So and I have a lot of commitment. I have a lot of stock. I have a lot of liability engaged with a couple of malls, and I have a whole tons of mess with me. So and I was literally stuck at the point that I didn't know what to do, and that was and to make the matter even more stressful. So that was when I had my first child. So that was back in 2015, early 2015, just about 6 years ago. And that was the same time where I had my first child as well.
Wow. A lot of
So,
things coming together.
oh yeah, 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 it was crazy. So then, but I think it was also that immense pressure to some extent
Hmm.
that I believe that for anyone, especially in business, it is when the time where you are pushed to your limit, then you sort of been forced to bounce back.
Hmm.
You had to tell yourself that you got to buckle up and do something about it. If not, there's no turning back. And that was what I did the first time. And and I had to quickly wrap up all my pop-up store and both of my boutiques with Freestyle in within 2 months. I had to try to resolve all the issues that I had with whatever commitment and liabilities that I had, and to make a full use of whatever remaining cash that I have with me at that point of time to move on and hopefully to make something new,
Hmm. Okay.
which I'm very glad to share today that I somehow did. So
Yeah,
and
you absolutely did. We're coming to that in a moment.
yeah,
I was last time we met. I was wondering like where your passion for, especially that sports apparel came from, and also the passion for running. You told me that you were at that time like over 100 kg. Have you lost like around 25 within like few months also, mostly due to running, right? Can you share like that story with us? Because I think that's really awesome and quite impressive also.
well, my friends used to call me a balloon. I have been a fat boy almost my entire life since high school. Since I was in college, I've always been in the range of 80 something kilo. Right then, and then of course, when I first started working, I first getting into business. So then, like most youngsters, then I had also been through this stage where, especially at that era, you see, I thought I was under the impression that you need to go out and network with people a lot. You need to go out and eat and drink with people a lot in order to make connections, in order which is supposedly good for business. But then after a couple of years, I somehow realized the only thing that it was good for was me gaining weight. Yeah. So by so I started gaining weight more and more when I was in my late 20s, and up to somehow about 8 years ago in 2013 at my peak I was about 96 kilo. Yeah, I
Uh,
was huge. It was yeah. So then I could show you some pictures later on from my from those days. Okay, so then it came to a point where I was going through so much at work as well. So I thought I need to start doing something with myself, not only in terms of career, but I just had to buckle up my life altogether. So I started running. So I started running, and so happened at that point in time, I had customers who were running their own running groups. So where they sort of asked me, they sort of invited me to join their running groups and clubs and to run with them together. And I started with 5K. And I just started running 5K, 10K with them. And of course, I control my diet as well. Very, very tough, hardcore. And within about 7 months, I lost 25 and eventually up to about 30 kilo to about 65. So, but in
uh,
the subsequent few years, then I grew back up a little, then I lost back, I grew back. So, yeah, the past couple of years
but
has always been like,
more in the healthier range, let's say, right? Not
yeah, yeah. I try to discipline myself as much as I
wow.
can.
Awesome, yeah, that's cool. I really like that. That's fantastic. So we see the passion for running, where it comes from, and how it helped you. And as you mentioned just before, 2015, you founded Ultron, which does not come from the Avengers, but the background was more like the ultra marathon. That where the name is coming from. You wanted to have like a Malaysian sports apparel production brand, and we all know today that story has become a really incredible successful one. More than 3,000 major events you collaborated with. You had more than, I read that somewhere, 4 million pieces of shirts sold in 12 countries, so far beyond Malaysia, throughout Southeast Asia. When you start, did you like, you had that vision, but was that like something that you could even imagine that you can become like that big, that successful at that point in time?
Absolutely not. Well, to be brutally honest with you now, like connecting back to what I was sharing just now, so it all happened by chance and coincidence to some extent. Back in early 2015, like I said, I was wrapping up the fashion retail business. So I was sort of in desperate needs to get into something new, to get into a new business, a new arena, which to some extent I'm still familiar and experienced in, but possibly a new market. And so happened that was also the time that I just managed to lose weight successfully, and I was hanging out with a few bunch of running friends. So I just got myself very active in running as a sports myself. So and I started to get exposed to the local grassroots running community where a lot of them are doing small running event or races of their own. And knowing that I was in the business, they also placed some order with me on a very small bulk. But I started to see because with my years of experience in apparel and textile, I realized that in order for us to succeed here locally, we have to especially for my strength, which was in procurement and production from Malaysia itself, instead of sourcing from China or sourcing from Bangladesh, which was the fastest growing industries in the world. So I knew that I had to shift my business focus into something where local manufacturing production has a strength,
Mm-hmm.
which so happened that sort of fits very well with the rising sport industry. So I did a couple of months of research, and in fact, I did a bit of research that was at the same time, which I used for my assignments in my MBA as well.
Mm-hmm.
So on the sports industry in Malaysia. So and specifically on the sportswear industry in Malaysia, where I find that even at that point of time, there were hardly any homegrown. There were almost no homegrown sportswear brand in Malaysia at all that have somehow taken off. Well, and though I have not been an active athlete my whole life, but I have been an active spectator for sports, watching football on like most of us guys, you know. And one main thing that I realized at that point of time was for a lot of countries out there around the world, especially those countries where they have very successful national athletes and they are active in sports, they usually have a very successful homegrown sportswear brand of their own, where their national athletes or even their respective people in that country itself would wear those sportswear products with pride, where they will use those products and speaks proudly about it, saying that this is our homegrown brand. And that was something that at that point of time that I felt we didn't have that
Mhm.
in Malaysia. For example, in you are from Europe, I'm sure you are well aware of brands like Lotto and Kappa from Italy, Umbro from UK, which at one point of time the entire Premier League was wearing Umbro. So then brands like even in China, Anta and Li-Ning were huge.
Mhm.
Even in Thailand, our neighboring country, the biggest sportswear company in Thailand and is a homegrown one that's called FBT. So
Okay. Yeah.
so so looking at all of these examples, and some I done extensive research on the rise of the sports industry and the rise of nationalism in Malaysia at that point at the time. So I thought perhaps it was high time where we could actually create a homegrown Malaysia sportswear brand that would target that would to some extent carries the identity of Malaysia and reflect our national spirit, lifestyle, and custom as well. So that was what I did. I came out with the brand Ultron, which Ultron was in fact named after the short form for the word marathon. So if you are familiar with running, there are several different categories with running according to its distance from the 5-10 km fun run. A 21 km is called a half marathon, and the 42 km is called a full marathon. So anything above 42 km is considered as an ultra marathon. So at that point in time, I thought I wanted a name that carries the strength, that carries the determination and tenacity that not only any athletes will require, but any business person would need to instill in their everyday life as well. So I went with the word ultra marathon, so I shortened it into Ultron. So yeah, and I sort of took a rental liability that I had previously engaged with New Central, which is the mall that is linked to KL Central. So
Mhm.
I actually at that point of time had a rent commitment with them for the previous brand, but I didn't materialize it because I was already folding the business. So I chose to continue that rent commitment, and I changed the entire outlet concept, and I launched Ultron in that shop in New Central sometime August 2015.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and the things
Awesome.
just
That was
and and it
the birth
yeah.
of a new additional baby. You mentioned that once in a interview. I saw that, and of course, running a company is sometimes like yeah, growing a baby, right? You mentioned just before, I think very humble, like you were at the right place at the right time, a bit lucky, you know. But I think the story of that followed is a lot more than just luck. I mean, you produced the shirts by yourself here in Malaysia, but also some of the awards you got, like Asia's top 10 sportswear 3 times. You were named the super brands in Malaysia, and even you have like some records in Malaysia's book of records. Among that, the lightest running T-shirt in Malaysia. Tell me more about that. Where did the idea come from, and how did you finally manage to produce such a shirt?
I think to quickly sum it up, initially when Ultron was first born, I didn't have a very clear direction on which particular sports segment I wanted to focus in. So it was rather general at first. We were targeting the fitness industry, we were targeting the yoga industry, running, cycling, or to some extent even football as well. I was working with UKMFC. But a couple of months into the birth of Ultron, I realized that it was crucial for us to pick a sports segment that we want to focus in. Then so of course the industry and the segment, that because I was already an active runner myself at that point of time, so naturally the sports segment that I was most familiar with became the first choice. And again, fortunately and coincidentally, running industry was also the fastest growing industry at that point of time, back in 2015-16, simply because the mass participating running and cycling events were on the rise. And with our production capability, we started with partnering and supplying for from 3, 5 running and cycling event at the start. In the first month, the following month it grew to 5 and 8, and the third month it grew beyond more than 10 events a month, and it just kept growing at the exponential rate that I did not see coming. But I was glad. I was very, very glad that how the market, especially the running community, were reacting towards the quality of the product that we were able to produce. So that was one of the main reason why most of the run organizers actually picked our brand to begin with, and within 2 years. So I was very glad to say that a lot of international major events have also noticed us, and in fact made the decision to partner with us, such as their official apparel partner as well, such as Ironman, Powerman, Asia Trail Master. So those international partnerships have sort of given us the exposure to create potential client base beyond Malaysia, and which subsequently led to us being able to export to more than 10 countries across Southeast Asia and as far as to Middle East as well. But I did not forget that our core has always been our product quality, especially for the runners. So being an active runner myself at that point of time, I was well aware that the weight of the t-shirt was very crucial, because I actually had the personal experience that if the t-shirts gets heavy and gets wet and it does not breathe, and it becomes uncomfortable to some extent, it will have a significant impact towards your performance. So that functionality on the apparel itself was the key to getting into the hearts of the runner, I believe. So, and at that point of time, more than 80 to 85% of our clientele were all runners and running events. So that was our core, and I was well aware that despite our business was growing well, it is also very crucial for us to continue to stay ahead in our R&D in order to stay ahead of our competitors. Because the moment our business took off, of course, there are more and more competitors who were previously not in the space and started to come in as well. So I started to work with my vendors, the factories, and to work. And we spent about 3, 4 months working very hard on our R&D to come out with a new type of running wear material that will be as light as possible, nothing like whatever that we have been doing for the market before that. So that was when, I think by sometime early 2018, we were able to produce this new product range that's called the Micro Dry Ultra Light, which the entire T-shirt itself weighed only 75 grams.
Wow,
So yes, yes,
that's impressive.
and despite it was very, very, very light, it is not thin or see through, because we also understand that it has to be friendly for the Muslim market as well. So we launched that in Q2 2018, and the market responded to it very well. So I took the product and to send it into Malaysia Book of Records for them to certify, and yeah, I had them to certify it as and they actually did a live show in October 2018. They put they put the t-shirt, they invite me onto the stage, they put the t-shirt onto the scale in front of TV, in front of the media live, to weigh how heavy the
Okay,
t-shirt
yeah,
actually weighed,
yeah, yeah.
and it was certified as a 75 gram. Compared to all of the research that they have done in the past, it was officially certified by Malaysia Board Record as
Yeah,
the lightest
the
running
lightest shirt.
t-shirt in Malaysia.
Awesome. What a fantastic story. A
Right.
fantastic story so far. I have to say, because like just 2 3 weeks ago you shocked with some news that you I would say shocking news, yeah, that you are stepping down from being owner and CEO of
Yeah.
Altron. And of course, first thing that comes to your mind immediately, okay, lockdowns, COVID, no one is running, or at least not outside, or a lot less, let's say. What really happened, Mark? What happened to this really awesome, fantastic company during this time of lockdown?
Well, I think to sum it all up, I what happened with Ultron, and the biggest mistake that I have done as the person who manages the company and to steer the direction of the business as a whole, was that I put my all my eggs on a single basket. Because as I mentioned, the mass participating industry was growing so well, and to some extent we were the key player of that particular space. We had the biggest market share in Malaysia. So I was putting me and my team was putting all of our focus is on the business, onto that particular industry itself. Because even at that point of time, we still see a lot of growth with the mass participating sports, especially in running, and cycling. And within that sports segment alone, we still see a lot of potential growth in the next 2 3 years ahead. So well, in fact, we were very, very hopeful at the beginning of last year, because last year was supposed to be the Malaysia tourism year. So and at that point of time, the Ministry of Tourism has in fact officially categorized mass participating sports event as one of their official category for sponsorship for the tourism year, which would really have a huge impact in driving the mass participating sports industry forward and take it to the next level because of the government support. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, that all did not happen.
yeah.
So when COVID came, compared to, I used to tell people, and I've done a couple of newspaper interview as well, compared to a lot of other industries like especially retail and all that, because Altron was in the retail industry as well, but it wasn't our core focus. But we could also felt firsthand the impact that the pandemic had towards the retail industry. But it was nothing like the impact that the pandemic has had towards the event industry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Because
okay, in your defense, I have to say, like, okay, no one really knew that, right? That was like came to a surprise to everyone. You just said like, okay, you the mistake that you see now of obviously is you put all the eggs in one basket, right? Like this risk that you had there. But what, like, looking back, what would you do differently besides like putting maybe get different business lines out there? Because I mean, in the end, the sports industry was just like dead for a couple of months also, right?
well, if looking back, I would have tell you the same thing that a lot of businessmen would have tell you, which is to go into digitization as soon as they could. So that was, of course, my biggest regret at this point of time. Something that I certainly had opportunities back then, but I always knew digital future would be the next step of the business and where the industry was heading towards. I already had customers who were organizing virtual runs, were doing virtual platforms and all of that. But I was so caught up in doing what I was doing and doing what I felt my company was best at. I did not take myself out of that circle and to start properly evaluating and making long-term plans for the company. So because if I have done that, so I would certainly have realized the potential of going digital
Mm-hmm.
and how crucial and how important it
Yeah.
would have been for me to start doing that
Mm.
even back at that point of time.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now is yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying like you were kind of victim to your own success, right? The company was so successful. Why would you look into other stuff to do in parallel when you like have a lot more to do with what you're currently doing?
I wouldn't say that I would call myself a victim of my own success in that sense. I would I would rephrase it in a way where I had a close friend who used to tell me
Hmm.
he is a much more experienced businessman than I am. He used to tell me where when you are running a business, there are often two kinds of things that as a business leader that you have to attend to. One is what we often call the urgent and important ones, which very often for most SME owners, we are caught up in those urgent and important things that are mostly closely associated with our day-to-day operating tasks, issues that pop up at work that we sort of require ourselves to be hands-on to resolve all of those issues and to
Mm,
keep
yeah.
our team and our company running smoothly on a day-to-day basis. So these are generally what we call the urgent and important ones.
Mm,
But in fact, there are things that are important yet not urgent that every business leader should pay attention to. That
mm,
was the long term planning, the diversification that I was talking about. Preparing your cash flow for rainy days that none of us would have expected. So and that part of job was the exact roles that I did not pull myself out from the urgent and important tasks daily
mm,
and
yeah.
to pay close attention into in order to make long-term proper
Mm,
sustainable plans for my company back then.
mm,
So looking back, this was the biggest issue. I'm not gonna blame it onto the pandemic. I'm not gonna blame it into the market changes because things happen.
mm,
This is
yeah.
just what business is. The the only thing that's constant is change. So I think looking back now, I firmly believe that, especially as a business owner, it is very, very, very important for us to look into this long-term sustainability planning to to prepare ourselves and to prepare our company
Mm,
for the next pandemic or somehow.
yeah.
Yeah,
For the not next unexpected situation, maybe
precisely,
that no one knows
precisely.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing so openly. Now maybe one of my latest last questions, because we're running over time already, but it's so fascinating to talk to you also. Okay, you started your companies, you started your brand, you have become like number one sports apparel in Malaysia, like like even in Southeast Asia, huge success story. Then the other parts that you just mentioned also. But what is it that you take like from this entire 6 year journey, right? Is it more like on a, okay, the lessons learned, what you could have done better, or is it more like the joy that you have when you feel something is growing and is successful? What is it for you the most important thing that you're taking from this entire journey?
I think it's about connecting and engaging with people. I think I often credit the big one of the biggest factor with Ultron success in the past was me and my team's ability to connect and to engage down to the very grassroots level of the running community across the country. So our marketing focus was always about engaging and connecting with the right people, with the right segment, and connecting them with the right way emotionally. And I believe that is the same applicable to any industry, any businesses. It all comes down to connecting with people. So, well, and whatever I'm gonna do next, I would continue to uphold the same spirit, the same ultra marathon spirit. That's one. And I will continue to put my new business focus onto engaging with people as well.
Awesome, yeah.
And I hope, yeah, with the same spirit of tenacity, with the same spirit of connecting and engaging with people, this would be a great lesson learned, and I would be able to come up with the next great thing again.
Okay, cool. I admire your spirit, your optimism, your positivity, certainly. So, can you share already what's next? Are you like taking a rest from what you did over the past 6 years, or are you more the guy like now dig right into the next chapter, the next business? Can you share any ideas, any plans that you're having already?
I was telling a lot of my friends that I have been too free for too long. In fact, because as much as I only officially stepped down from the role with Altron this month, but basically, as I said, the entire industry has been placed on a complete halt since last year. So my schedule, my time has been completely different for the past 1 year compared to it was before when I had to travel across the country before COVID. But I am thankful for that because I get to spend more time with my family. I get to spend more time with my kids. And I guess for now it's more of a time for me to to sit back, to truly evaluate and analyze that what I have learned in the past 6 years, and where and how and where am I going to move towards next, and how exactly am I going to do it, and how am I going to do it right and do it better next time around.
Awesome, yeah. I saw also you're doing a doctor in business administration. Um, that's a lot of work, I think. Also, all the best with that one. All the best for your next venture that you're starting. And again, thank you so much, Mark, for your time and sharing your awesome experience and insights into this in your journey in the sports apparel and the apparel industry in general.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Pleasure is mine.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. And
Thank
thanks to
you.
the audience for watching, listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I
Thank you,
did.
everybody. Bye.
And I see you next week again for a new episode of Pat's Chats. Thanks.